Welcome back to the King's Court Podcast, or as we call it, the Bethesda Brothers Podcast. I am joined, as always, with the legend, Joey Caps. How you doing, Brother Joe?
I'm doing okay. Doing all right, you know. How are you, King? How's everything going?
I'm doing great. I'm back in the King's Corner, so hey.
You are!
Yes, I'm doing good. Well, I have a subject today that might not make you feel so stupendous. It might. It might put you on edge. It might kind of be.
Hey.
Yeah, I want to talk about what the Microsoft's acquisition of Bethesda means for the gaming business, because this is not the only acquisitions.
Acquisition.
Thank you, that are going on right now. In fact, I was just reading before we got on here that Embracer, it's a you may not have heard of it. It's a Swedish company, but they actually have 57 studios. Amplifier, wow. Saber, Deca. Anyway, it's a pretty big place, but they have bought out Gearbox. Of course, Gearbox is the maker of Borderlands. So here we have another major acquisition, and I believe it was $1.3 billion. So not as big as the Bethesda's acquisition, but a very big acquisition. My question is today, is this good for gaming or is it bad for gaming? You know, we've lost the individual companies like Bethesda, like Obsidian. These were great little private companies. Now, yes, they have more money now, but it's all getting centralized, and I'm afraid it's going to get more and more centralized. So I'll shut up now. What do you think? Is this good for gaming, bad for gaming? Do you like this direction?
When there's competition, that's when people are better than ever.
Yep.
You know, and right when the saying "less is more" does not apply to this, you know. It's not a good way. It's not good to centralize gaming. There should be as much competition out there as possible. Good competition. I don't think we're at a point where, you know, I mean, I don't know. Will there be a point when Microsoft just buys almost everybody and then Sony's starting to pick the companies off too? And then what happens? It will just be with Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, and the big three. Like, is that it? Is that what's going to happen? It could, especially since, you know, Microsoft buying Bethesda, that was a huge acquisition. Even when they bought Minecraft's developer Mojang, I'm sorry if I'm saying it right, they did that years ago for $2.5 billion. So I mean, it's not good when there's less out there, if that makes any sense, because I know recently there is a studio who remastered the old Tony Hawk game 1 and 2, and then they also released Crash Bandicoot 4. That company dissolved or merged with somebody else, but they're no longer working on any Tony Hawks or Crash games anymore. And it's like, what the heck, man? Yeah. So what are we working on? Destiny? Is that what they're doing? So I don't know what their plan is, but no, it's definitely not good for gaming, especially the Tony Hawk game did so well, and it was the sports game of the year. And now you're telling me that they don't have a vision for that series anymore. That stinks. You know, I don't know. I'm not for centralizing these studios.
Let me throw you a couple more figures out. Amazon Gaming, yes, they have a gaming division. They've never really had a big success, but they spent over $500 million recently on their gaming division because they don't have a hit. Google's another that has a whole gaming system.
Stadia, right?
Yeah. Are these kind of companies going to start picking off the remaining companies? I mean, you know how much money Amazon has, and just look look what's happened to big tech. Big tech is all now one conglomeration. It don't matter if you're on Twitter, YouTube. It's all Google. Yeah. It's all Google operated.
Yeah, I feel like, with that being said, for example, Google Stadia, I heard it's not doing well.
No.
And if Amazon wants to get into the mix, you also have to know how to do the job. And if you don't have the right people there, it won't be done right. It won't be done correctly,
Well,
especially with marketing and all that stuff. It won't be done right.
but that's
So
why I'm saying
they all have to do it right.
if Amazon's going to have any major success,
Yeah.
one of the best things they can do personally is buy a successful studio, and that seems to be the new thing to do.
That's the issue though with buying a successful studio. They have to know what to do with it, because you could buy a great studio and then you could, for example, let's say Amazon bought Bethesda, right? And they see how much money Elder Scrolls and Fallout make. They could just say, "Hey, Bethesda, just make these two games and that's it. We don't want Starfield. We don't want Doom. We don't want Dishonored. We don't want Deathloop. Crank out Fallout every year. Crank out Elder Scrolls every year. Do it. We have all the studios." That's the problem with some of these companies. They might envision that, and you might see that with an inexperienced gaming company, if that makes any sense, because at the end of the day, they're seeing the dollar signs, and obviously, and that's where you have to be careful.
Well, we saw that with ZeniMax some. I mean, we have to admit it. They got to seeing dollar signs instead of making correct decisions there toward the end, and of course, we all kind of griped at some of those things. But
Yeah.
if you remember back, ZeniMax on a smaller scale was doing the same things. They were acquiring studio after studio after studio. In fact, they tried to purchase, and I cannot remember the name of the studio, somebody down in the comments can. They tried to purchase the studio that made Rage 2 with id. It was kind of up for sale,
Yeah.
and it wound up going to someone
Avalanche.
else. Avalanche, there you go. It was actually sold to someone else. So all of these little companies are getting bought up into these
The
conglomerations.
the thing is with how ZeniMax did it though, they were still making games. Like we saw Rage 2, Doom Eternal, the Dishonored franchise. Like, I mean, they were still making a lot of games. They didn't just stick to Fallout. But what I'm saying is, if Amazon, if all they see is money and they see how much money Fallout brings in, they will water down that franchise in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And thank God that didn't happen. Thank God Microsoft bought them, because that's a company that's experienced with gaming.
And that's what I want to get into next is what does it mean for Bethesda?
Yeah, and of course, Amazon, they could have brought people in, experienced people, which you would think that they would do that, but you never really know until it happens. And I would just don't, I thank my lucky stars. I thank God every day that Amazon did not buy Bethesda.
Yeah,
that it was Microsoft. Best case scenario was Microsoft, not even Sony. Best case scenario was with Microsoft, and I'm glad that happened. But go on, King. I'm sorry.
Well, what I was talking about ZeniMax, and you'll agree, and a lot of people agree, it was late in the process. They started doing a lot of microtransactions. Of course, that's where 76 came along. But Creation Club, all these things. This was not, I don't believe, in the original plans of Bethesda or BGS. These all came along because of some board members on ZeniMax, or because they got in a little financial trouble. So they wanted that quick money fast. Well, I see it, the more centralized we get, I'm afraid it's going to get more and more like that. And I love to see the little studios that it may not even be a AAA game, but to make a success. I love to see that. And we're just not in an era to see that much anymore, because if they do have success, they're going to be bought up by somebody else. And many times, this is what's bad. I'm so glad, like you said, that Microsoft bought Bethesda. One of the terrible things is a lot of these companies are buying up these other studios, gutting out the studio, and then closing the studio down.
Yeah. It's
just to get rid. Are they
that.
getting rid of the competition? Is that what they're doing?
It's a pathetic way of doing it, and it doesn't make any sense, because there's money to be made with their games.
Yep.
And that's what stinks. If that will continue to happen with because of these big companies buying all these studios, things like that will continue to happen. And thankfully, Microsoft did not think that way. Imagine if they dissolved almost every studio except, let's say, BGS and maybe a few others.
Yeah.
They didn't, thankfully, but it could have happened.
So far.
They're not going to. There's no way.
By the way, we did get a date, I believe it's March the 5th, that the EU, the European Union, is going to be voting on whether the Microsoft and Bethesda merger can go through, which is kind of interesting because the several countries have to agree with that. And this is supposedly to keep down monopolies from forming.
Yeah. To anybody else out there, honestly, who doesn't want to see this go through for whatever reason, pray that it does, of the simple fact that Microsoft was the best company to acquire Bethesda. Okay. If they can't acquire them, and if Sony swoops in, and if or Amazon, like somebody else, I would be I would be scared, because if Sony swoops in, let's just say it happened. I'm not saying it will. Let's just say it did, right? They would make their games exclusive in a heartbeat. And that not only means no Xbox, but most likely no PC. See, with exclusivity with Xbox, they will also open it up still to PC as well. Right. That's the one thing that we have to keep an eye on. So let's hope that this deal goes through, because if it doesn't, somebody else may swoop in. And you hope that wouldn't happen. But I guess we have to see.
Well, and let's also be careful. We have praised Microsoft, and I think rightfully so, because we've seen their practices down the years. But we honestly, until this deal is done and the ink is dried, we don't know what Microsoft is going to do with Bethesda. They can say right now, we're going to leave them alone, let them be Bethesda. But in one of your podcasts just recently, we talked about the chances of exclusives coming to, all the Bethesda games being exclusives. Yeah. That's a big chance. We don't know how Microsoft is going to act, say, a year or two down the road. So if I had my choice, honestly, I would get rid of what was going on bad at ZeniMax, and I would rather Bethesda still be that private little company. Now, yes, the extra money and resources is great, but it just scares me. I don't want to lose what Bethesda is. And
well, the one good thing with Microsoft, they don't necessarily rush their games. And what I mean by that is this. Well, you could take Gears of War, for example.
They're not
right?
EA pushing them out every year. That's what
you have Gears of War that came out in 2006. Then the second game came out 2 years later. The third game came out 3 years later. It's not like they were making them pump out game after game after game. And then when Gears of War 4 came out, that game came out in 2016. And then Gears 5 came out in 2019. So they're not in a hurry to push out these games. However, they may be in a hurry. King, I wouldn't say in a hurry, but they may not want to wait 10 years for Fallout 5. They may not want to wait so long for Elder Scrolls 6. They may not want to wait so long for the next Starfield if this one does well. They may not want to wait. And
can I make a point real quick? I know everybody might be saying, well, that's a great thing. Not necessarily. You won't get the same kind of game if it's rushed.
The thing is, though, the one good thing about this, if at least we know that there is another studio, a part of Microsoft, that could make a good Fallout game. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
At least we know that. So most likely, Obsidian, they could help out with a Fallout game, help BGS out. Or if Microsoft really wants them to, they could make one themselves. So that's the good thing. I really do feel that Microsoft in this deal saw how much money Fallout really what Fallout makes, and they think, you know what? I mean, we have Obsidian that made a tremendous Fallout game, match made in heaven. We own the IP now. They own the IP. So if Bethesda's working on Elder Scrolls, I know Obsidian's working on Avowed and their own stuff, and maybe the new Outer Worlds. They're working on Grounded as well. But when it comes down to it, what do you prioritize? Do you prioritize Fallout or Outer Worlds? If from a business point of view, a business standpoint, Outer Worlds really it was hot out of the gate, and then you never heard about it ever since. Fallout 76, 3 years later, almost, and we still hear things about it almost
growing.
every day.
Now, also remember, we've already mentioned it. I mentioned it on the KingCast Saturday, and I think we mentioned it on another podcast. Microsoft is in the works for another major studio that they're about to purchase. So again, this is more of that centralization. I don't
like it.
I don't want Bethesda to get lost in the mix. And there's also another saying, too many chefs in the kitchen. With Phil Spencer being in charge and Todd Howard being in charge, you're going to have a lot of people in charge. But Microsoft ultimately, as we said the other day, they have the final say.
Yeah.
And that's kind of scary.
We will know what happens. We won't know what happens until the deal is done, but then we will know more. We will learn more as the months go on. And I'm not saying Pete Hines would go. I'm not saying Todd Howard would go. But would it really shock you? Like, really? Would it's how business works.
Yep.
So I mean, I know for the people down in the comments, I know that Phil Spencer said, we're going to try and let Bethesda just be Bethesda. What else did you think he was going to say?
Yeah, that's a great thing to say.
He couldn't have said anything else. He couldn't have said, you know what, we're going to go trim down the studios and Mr. Howard is out of a job. And he's not going to say any of that. No one will say any of that until that deal is finalized and until it's Microsoft's property.
Yeah.
That's when we will definitely know more, especially with exclusivity. We will know everything after March 5th and in the months coming after that. That's when we'll know more.
We'll definitely know more, but we may not know the full effect of this for a year to 5 years, how much things are going to change inside Bethesda because of this purchase.
Yeah, well, we won't.
And I'm just like you. I do not want it to come down to there's 3 big gaming companies now. That's all there is, and that's what it's pushing toward.
Yeah, with the Microsoft acquisition, it is good because you have other resources, but you don't almost want a monopoly in the gaming industry. You don't want that at all.
Nope.
We need competition.
We do.
And I don't know.
We need Sega to start making a console again.
Sega or the KFC console. Where's that?
Sega.
He heats up my chicken. The KFC console heats up my chicken as I'm gaming. What the heck is that? Maybe, I don't know.
But, well, I still have very positive vibes about the Microsoft acquisition. Even though I have fear, I do have positive vibes. It's like you said, I don't think we could have picked a better big company to purchase Bethesda. So we just hope, I just hope they keep their word and let Bethesda be Bethesda.
You hope so. I hope that happens. Who knows if it's going to happen? I don't know.
Well,
I won't.
I want to know what all you guys think down in the comments about this monopolization of gaming. I sure don't want it to turn into what big tech is, censorship and everything. You don't want that stuff creeping into gaming. We want to keep it to where the little guys can still compete and have some variety in gaming. That's what I want. That's my big deal. But the last thing I'll say, who's going to step in to break these companies up or not allow it? That's what's going on right now with the EU making this ruling.
Yeah.
And I also don't want government to stick their big nose into it
either. So, yeah, It speaks volumes though at how much money Microsoft spent on or is going to spend on Bethesda. $7.5 billion. Maybe a company like Bethesda didn't want to get bought out. You know, with ZeniMax, maybe they didn't want to get bought out. Microsoft said, "Hey, we'll give you 7.5 billion reasons why." Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. We wouldn't accept 2.5, 3 billion, but 7.5. Oh, we sure will. Thanks.
Absolutely. Well,
That's
Joe,
what happened.
this was the main thing I wanted to talk about today. I really want the listeners and watchers out there to really think about this and give me your comments down below, because it is a scary thing where gaming could be going in the next 4 to 5 years, and we just hope Microsoft does what they're supposed to do right. But Microsoft is going to continue to grow. Don't fool yourself. They're going to continue to grow. Well, Joe, thanks for being on the podcast again. That's all I got.
That's it.
That's it.
We're done.
Yeah, are you stupendous now? No.
No.
This wasn't fun stuff to
Not
talk
yet.
about. No.
But it was great. I had fun.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you having me. Love being on. Anybody that's not subscribed to me, do me a favor and subscribe to Joey Caps Gaming. That'd be much appreciated.
Absolutely.
King, it was a blast. Thank you, brother.
Y'all go to his channel, watch every one of his videos twice. We will
5
see
times.
you guys next time. Bye, guys.